5,
4,
3. Oops, that's a 3.
2.
1. Hi, tribe. I'm Evelyn.
And I'm Versavia.
And this is Objectively Typed, a podcast where we explore the objective personality system. Today, we're going to just have a casual conversation about typing and kids. So identifying a kid's type, what can we see when do different parts of the type, start to show themselves or develop. So this one is more kind of like what we've experienced in the kids in our life and just kind of thinking about it and brainstorming about it. Anything else you want to say before we?
No, I think that about covers it.
Yeah, so a little background, like I was telling Versavia before we started recording, this was like one of the first things I personally was really interested in when I first got into like the OPS class. Like I think my very first email to Dave and Shannon was like, what do you guys see with kids? Like, can you type a kid? Like, what can you do? And there's different opinions out there in the Myers-Briggs and typology space about when certain functions develop, how they develop, and so forth. And so, like, I'm not a typologist, like professionally. I don't know. Are there professional typologists? I don't even know.
Well, I mean, Myers-Briggs is a business, MBTI
is a business, but I'm saying, like, I don't know if there's like people who, I don't know, in academia who like study, I guess.
Study this?
Yeah. Anyway,
what science is there for that?
Yeah. I guess my preface to that is like, I haven't like exhaustively studied this. I have two kids. And I've watched them. I've talked to other people. So like, that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just, because this is the kind of stuff that I want, let's give some sensory to our listeners. So how old are your kids?
My kids are 5 and not quite 2. I always forget how old the second one is because he's the second kid. He's like 21 months or something like that.
Yeah.
I always joke about how like I don't actually know. He's over a year and a half and not quite 2.
And so the kids in my life I don't have any kids of my own, but I have a niece and a nephew. And my niece is also not quite 2. She's, I think, a couple weeks younger than Jay. And my nephew is 4 months. And then also I was a teacher for 6 years. So I have some experience with kids, but it was before I discovered MBTI. So like I wasn't constantly trying to type all the kids in my life the way that, now we move through the world, we meet somebody and we're constantly like, whoa, hello, EP.
I know, I cannot turn it off at all. So
yes.
It's like frustrating. I'm like,
it's a blessing and a curse.
I know. So, and then I've also had conversation with Shannon, and I think she mentioned this in our interview with her, which she has an 8-year-old son, I believe he's 8, right? And they've said that like they could see his functions, his savior functions really, really early on, like as a baby.
Yeah, and so, it's interesting what hits you and when it hits you. Yeah,
so we want to talk a little bit about that, like what we've seen with the kids in our lives. So I guess we just jump in, I guess. Like, so I know maybe we'll go like age-wise, like as a baby.
Okay,
But because I know that from talking to Shannon, she said that with her son, she could kind of see that masculine TE also, like even as a baby.
She said that. Yeah, because he was very like,
yeah, right.
Which is interesting. Because I'm seeing something similar with my niece and my nephew. Like when my niece was born, the 2-year-old, like she just so much masculine FI coming off of that girl. Like you do not move her emotions. You smile at her, she'll be like, okay, and what do you want with it?
Yeah.
My nephew, very feminine feeling. Like you smile at him and he smiles right back.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, it's almost like he has FE, except if he has FE, I don't know where it's coming from because
I don't know. Well, and I guess like that's another aspect of this is I don't know where the type comes from anyway. Like, I mean, they kind of link it to the genetics, and so like you do wonder, but I don't know that it's inherited. I don't know that Luis and I both being on TEFI doesn't mean that our kid's not going to be.
Will be TEFI, yeah, of course.
Who knows?
And I mean, there's so much more to it than that. There's grandparents, aunts, and uncles, and all of that factoring in.
Yeah, forever back to the beginning of time. Yeah, so
I think that's an interesting question. Like, if we're talking about children and type, there has to be a certain assumption of, do we put stock in type coming from biology, at least to a degree?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you and I have ever talked about that.
Yeah, I don't know if we have. Like, and I kind of do. Well, okay, I'll say it this way.
Okay.
I'll say it this way. I think that you're like born with your deck of cards. Like your type is you come in with it, and then the way that so the world happens to you and you're going to respond to certain things because of your type, like I know there's
Right.
some people that kind of feel like, it's the whole nature nurture question, right? And it's like, I do think that you come preloaded with some sort of programming.
So you think there is a definite nature component to it? Because some people think it's all nurture.
Right. Right. I know I'm definitely on the more, I key it more towards nature. I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think I do too. So I guess, dear listener, those are the biases we're coming in with. Like
Exactly.
those are the expectations we
Yeah.
bring to the table with this
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this
Exactly.
conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I know like my husband, I mean, he's not into this stuff, but obviously I talk about it enough that like he can't help
Yeah.
it. He just kind of, and I know he kind of thinks there's more of a nurture aspect. Like he
Yeah.
does think that his childhood shaped the way he is today. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
I agree with, and David Shannon fall on this, on the more nature side too, of like, the same things can happen to the siblings in a household, but each sibling's going to act differently about it or take something different from that same
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
because of their type, right? Like, I mean, he's an IP, so he's like, everybody was out to get me as a kid. You don't even know, and
Yeah.
he's like, and that's why I learned to rely on just me. And I'm like, well, you're
Yeah.
also keyed that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that we do come with, like you said, with our deck of cards. We get the model of car that we get.
Mm-hmm.
That's Dave's favorite example. We get the
Yeah.
model of car that we get, and that's the one that we
Yeah.
move through life, and then we can make adjustments and do things. I don't
Yeah.
think it predetermines what your life is going to be like,
No.
but it's like it's actually fascinating. In psychology, there's a lot of research that tries to understand what's nature and what's nurture, and a lot of the research comes back that like fascinating studies that even something like criminality has it's not all nurture. You would think
Right.
that it is, but there is a
Some
nature
bias.
component to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I think a lot more of our personality and all of these rather subjective ideas are actually coming from our biology. I
Mm-hmm.
think this is an exception to that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we derailed a little bit.
No, I think that's part of it though.
Okay.
Like I think that's a
Yeah.
good sort of ground base of like, because that's what we all start. Yeah, right. You're born.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when you're born, you kind of come in with something. Now it's just a matter of like, where does that start to show up? So that's where we were kind of jumping in with babyhood of like, what can you see early on? I
Yeah.
know like with my daughter, she was very, very reserved, and she still to this day is reserved. So I guess that's the other aspect is I know I can clearly see introverted, extroverted in kids,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Even just that simple, like, are they more extroverted energy or more introverted energy? And like, she is definitely more on the introverted side and always has been. I remember in Seattle, there's a thing called PEPS. It's like a program for early parental support. And basically it's a support group for parents. And so they get together, people who live nearby, and all of your babies were born at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you regularly meet like when you're on like maternity leave, like really early on, so that you got to get to know people.
Yeah,
And
of course.
I remember kind of watching, because even though I'm new to typology, I always have been fascinated by like just people watching and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
typological standpoint. And you could see how like my daughter, she still does this. She would watch things happen, more of a kind of an observer. I'm starting to think she's an observer, but she'd watch things happen and she wouldn't engage in things. So she was very much of like, I'm just gonna watch these kids play before
Yeah.
I do it, before I
Before
go
you
in and
engage in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
or I do play energy. So her play, wherever it is not top.
It's not
She's not
high.
lead play. Yeah. She's not a lead. She doesn't just jump in and get started. Like she wants to watch and kind of consume, I'd say, consume or sleep on stuff
Yeah.
first. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you can start to see, I mean, she was like 6 weeks old or something, like when
When
we
you
started
notice
it.
that kind of, yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating how early we could. So for context, I guess you've been studying OPS for a year about now. I think we've both been in the class about
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah, I think I started
Um,
in March
so
last year.
Jay was probably like half a year, six
Yeah, he was
months
like six
ish
months old. Yeah, he
when you
was.
started studying the system.
Yeah.
So you had about a year of like seeing
Watching him.
him
Yeah.
grow and also applying the system
Yes.
to him and observations.
Yes.
Yeah. So my nieces, they're a couple weeks apart,
Yep.
Jay and Ellie. And it's the same, the things that like pop out at you and you're kind of like,
Yeah.
whoa, where's this
What
coming
is
from?
this? Yeah. Yes.
So my niece has a cousin that is a couple months older than her. And there's a video early on, like they both just started crawling. It's a great video of he's just sitting there and
Yeah.
he's definitely asleep of some kind. He's just sitting there and just like barely moving, and she's literally running circles around
Yeah.
him.
That was how my daughter was when we would go over to a friend's house. So in that peps group, you kind of make your friends. Like these are,
Yeah, of course.
so we would just go and have one-on-one with them. And it was the same thing, like their son. And so I always thought this was a boy girl thing until I started learning more and kind of seeing like, oh no, this is a type thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so funny you bring up that story. I remember when Jay was, yeah, he had to be about 6 or 7 months old, but he was crawling. He was still a crawler. We visited my family back in Ohio, and he would like chase the dog around. And it was just hilarious. So he's much more on that extroverted spectrum, much
Actually, yeah.
more.
Ellie does that too.
Yeah, like he would, and this is a big dog. Like he's kind of a big dog, and like at first I was a little nervous because like my kid, like we don't have pets or anything,
Yeah.
but the dog was so gentle with him, so it was
Oh.
fine. But he would like chase the dog around, and then the dog would get tired and lay down, and Jay would just like pull on his tail.
And he still wants to go and
He
play.
still wants to play. Yeah, it's that play energy of like I need to ping from the external world. Like I need to interact with the external world. At least it doesn't have that need to engage the external world. She can.
Fascinating how early we can see things like that.
Yes, that I saw. That's probably like one of the first things I would say, like that sort of play, like where you are on the play sleep spectrum, if you will,
Okay.
of like all the way tied this way, Tony Robbins, or
Yeah.
who's the Elon Musk, right? I think he's like the example we use for like the super
Super
introvert.
introverted. Yeah.
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 So another thing, you and I have kind of talked about this offline a bit, but another thing that definitely smacked me early, and I know you've talked about it with Jay a bit, is
Mm-hmm.
the modalities.
Mm-hmm.
Like my niece is, you and I are both on the kinesthetic texture axis, so
Yeah.
we're not really on the audio visual axis, but
Yeah.
the way that Dave and Shannon talk about an interruption to whichever sense that is, like that still happens with my niece. Like there will be a lawnmower somewhere on the other side of the street and it won't even register in my head, and she will pay attention to it. They'll be like, what is that, what's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. It's so funny. Like the modality, I think, I don't know where I heard this, so I just might be talking completely out of my ass here. But like, I feel like people have said that the modality is something you can see early. And with my kids, I'm not 100% on it. I
Okay.
do kind of feel like Jay is more double masculine. Like if I had to pick,
Yeah.
and so maybe that's why. Maybe it's because they're not on because I think visual and audio you would see clearly, like you said, like, oh, I hear something,
Yes.
or I see something,
Yeah. Those are
whereas
easier
like,
to spot.
yeah, whereas
And
with
the double masculine, like,
they're gonna be
or,
punchy,
or
and
tester, yeah.
he's certainly abusive of things.
Sensory.
Yeah, maybe that's
Yes.
where I've heard it, because I think Dave and Shannon have talked about how their son would just like throw things, and how they had to put a punching bag in his
Yeah,
room
for
at
him.
like
Yeah.
age 4 or something. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, like Jay is definitely like, just yesterday he kind of gets in these moods. I mean, he's almost 2, so that, terrible 2
Yeah.
and all that, where he
Yeah.
just like hates everything. Like you cannot make him happy. Like he's just like, I'm
Mm.
mad, and I don't like
I just
nothing
want to
you're
rage
doing.
at the world.
Yeah, like nothing you're doing is going to soothe me. And we've
Yeah.
learned we have to just snap him out of it with some other interrupter,
Mm-hmm.
because nothing is soothing. But like we were giving him stuff, and he would just like throw it. Like, and then what's funny is like if he threw it and it didn't really go far enough, he'd pick it up again and like throw it
Throw it
again.
harder.
Yeah. So apologies on the audio if I just like yelled into the mic, but like it's so hilarious because it's like that didn't get enough force for me. Like I guess I am leaning towards double masculine.
It sounds
Yeah.
like it, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely,
It's
it sounds
stereotypical.
like you're seeing masculine sensory for
Yes.
sure. And
Yes.
whether or not it's a lot harder to spot whether the tribe is masculine or feminine
Yeah.
when
I,
they're so young, right? Because they're not
yeah.
interacting too much with the tribe.
Yeah.
But if he
Yeah.
was audio, I think he would know it.
I think so. And I think you've brought up that you can see feminine feeling more so, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I'm seeing with him, is he does seem to be feminine feeling. Like you can smile at him and he'll smile back. Like he
Yeah.
he reacts to the emotions. Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's actually something that I added to my checklist as a cross check.
Hmm.
So I have, masculine tribe or feminine tribe, but I also have as a sub check of that is whether or not they're feeling is masculine or feminine.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
on the deciders, it's easier to see where the feeling is, just like on
yeah,
the observers, it's like look for the sensory. Like, is it
yeah,
masculine sensory? Okay, so now you got feminine intuition. Whereas like on the deciders, is it masculine feeling or feminine feeling? Okay, then I can guess
yeah,
the thinking. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
With my nephew, it's fast. Like my niece was like she was only a couple months old. I would like pick her up and she was like, she was old enough that she was I mean maybe she had just started sitting up so she had the muscle control and all
Right,
of that.
right.
She would take my hand and remove it from her body. She
Do
would just
not
be like,
touch me.
"No, don't touch me." Yeah, exactly. Whereas my nephew is just like I will smile at him and
Yeah.
he will just smile right back. He just
Yeah.
totally like glows and just lights up.
Yeah.
And it's like I wonder if it is FE because if it is FE, like as I'm seeing him interact this way, it's fascinating because so he's learning at a very, very young age, right? That if I smile at people, I will get the reaction that I want.
Yeah.
Learning how to play with those emotions of the FE. I don't know if he is FE.
Yeah. But
But
to your point, yeah. And actually, so you just pinged off a little thought bubble in my head is like, and I think that's kind of how the development works. It's like
yeah,
we already came pre-stacked, but like you said, like we start to learn early on, like, ooh, that gives me my
that got a
dopamine.
reaction. Yeah.
That's my
There's
savior.
various behaviors get
Yes.
reinforcement and
Get
others don't.
reinforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
and
Of
so I think
course.
that's why, like, as your life goes on, you become more conscious of your functions too, because you're gonna find your saviors early. And like so to kind of continue the same thread, the biggest thing I noticed with Jay is he is the NT puzzler. Well, there's two things: the puzzling and the gathering.
Mm.
Because, and I showed you a picture. So he actually gathers like physical things too. I showed you a
Yeah.
picture. He
Yeah.
had like a train, and like he had put something on his on his like
On
head,
his
and like
head.
he had like 50 things, and that's him. And like he'll just walk around with things, and he's just gathering them up, but he doesn't do anything with them. He just likes to carry stuff around, or like just yesterday I was dropping him off at daycare, and he had this like ball, and he would not like let it go. He had gathered it and was like, "This is my ball now." Like I was like, "Jay, you can't take this to school." No, he was so mad. Like he was like, "I gathered this." So but that NT puzzling, that's where I was going. Is like it's, and I've contrasted it with Shannon's son, who's ST. So he
Right.
also is and he's gather SE. He's SETE, right, or TESE. He's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
as her.
Yeah. He's her double masculine
Yeah.
version.
Yeah. So
Family, she says, is ENTJs.
Yeah, so she saw a lot of him sort of like engaging with the sensory and like gathering the sensory and stuff like that. Whereas with Jay, he's much more interested of like, if I touch a
Does
thing,
it work?
does it
How
work?
does it
Like,
work?
how
Yeah.
does it work? So like, we can't like, no toys work for him. Like,
Because he's always like breaking them to figure out how they work.
well, and he's not even breaking them. He gets bored with
Oh,
them. Like, it's like, this
oh, okay.
doesn't do enough for me. This
Yeah.
doesn't do enough for me. So then, yeah, so then he just throws it down. And it's like, but like, thankfully toys are pretty tough for kids. So like, they don't generally
Yeah.
break. But like, so the toys that are the best for him are things that do things. And unfortunately, like one of the things we've given him is the Apple Watch because he enjoys it. It lights
Figuring out how
up.
it
So I have
works.
older Apple Watches, obviously not this one, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
previous ones. And like that's what Luis gives him when it's like, okay, this boy, he will not let us alone.
We need a few minutes to make dinner.
Yeah, and
Here, play with this.
he gets super into it. So he is
Yeah.
going to be like the video game. So I think he's NT. Like I do think he's NT. I'm not sure what
Some of
flavor.
the things. Yeah.
I'm guessing NE just because I also see the gathering
Uh-huh.
and I
Yeah.
see that extrovertedness. But he's the puzzler. He loves to like he figured out stuff. I mean, he isn't consciously figuring it out, but you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there were
Yeah.
things that my phone did that like I didn't know it did until Jay like located these sub menus and stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? Like it's
That's
crazy.
so fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about modalities and how we see elements of the modalities. Obviously, some parts are easier to spot than others, like how they interact with the sensory. Do you have any ideas on Elisa's?
Well, modality wise, I that's where I was saying like I don't know. Like I would maybe tester, you know, maybe she's double feminine, he's double masculine. It could be. I mean, that's where Luis and I
Oh
kind
my
of
God.
sit. Yeah. Yes. So I often sort of jokingly say that Elisa got Luis's software and my hardware, and Jay got my software and Luis's hardware. In that Elisa looks like me.
Yeah,
Like she is like my
she
doppelganger.
does. Yeah. And Jay looks exactly like
Yeah,
Luis.
he looks like a puppy version of Luis. But yet,
Oh my God, he does.
but he's got my like
Software.
functions and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Elisa has Luis's. So it would make sense if she's double feminine and he's double masculine. I don't know. I see,
Time will tell. Yeah.
time will tell, because sometimes I see elements of uh masculine with the tribe with Elisa, but I can't tell. Like she's very like, no, I
Mm.
don't want that. But that could be self, you know, that could be DI happening too.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. That's a toughie one.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So I was gonna say we should talk like decider observer.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you know, it's funny, decider observer is the biggest, like, you know, the first
Divider.
big cut. Yeah, divider
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
system. Yeah, it can be like the hardest to
And
see.
I struggle with it. Yeah. I actually was just thinking about it the other day. I'm
I
like,
struggle with it too.
I think I'm going to go through the docs and find two types that are very similar,
Hmm.
but one's an observer, the other's a decider, and just kind of, finally take Dave's advice and really study them.
Yeah. I have done, yeah. I've done something similar, because for the longest time I was stuck on Luis of like observer, decider. And so like I would do that. I would pick two types that were similar, but it's still hard. Like it's still
Yeah,
hard
it
even
is.
knowing it. So I
The
and
other thing that complicates it, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
The other thing that complicates it, and I asked Shannon about this, although I got to say I didn't really, the
Give a
response
strong
was
answer.
not
It was not definitive.
helpful. Yeah. Can you hear that?
No.
Okay, good. Um, I asked her, so
Yeah.
how to tell the difference between an observer and someone who is info dominant.
Ah,
They're going to be going after information as a way of solving things. And I'm still like, especially as someone who is both an
I
observer, both of
know.
us are both observers and info dominant. So we're
Yeah.
like extra about the info, right?
Yes.
But an observer who's energy dominant
I know.
or a decider who's info dominant, like it's trickier.
It is trickier. And I think this is also why I sometimes struggle with SE, because SE also can just look like observing too, because it's like trying to find the sensory, you know, like SE
Yeah,
users
yeah.
tend to be more. So yeah, so if you're like, well, I guess like a Shanny, you know, you're a
Yeah.
decider, but you're SE savior. Oh no, she's energy dominant, but you know, and you're info dominant. I have a really tough time with that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so what I was gonna say, before you were making a very good point, I was gonna make a stupid point, which was just purely anecdotal. Like, I mean, this is anecdote city, by the way, this whole podcast, but
Yeah, of
this
course.
one is like very far into
Extra
woo woo.
anecdote
Yeah,
city. Okay.
this is woo woo. Like that whole observer eyes thing.
Yeah, you're starting to see it?
I'm starting to see it. Like, I mean, you can see observer eyes with me. Like even in this video, I'm looking at
Okay.
myself and I can see my observer eyes. Like they're like big, and like we're like, what's going on? It's like this what's going on face. And that's Elisa. Like her pictures are like, what's going on? Like I don't know. And Jay is a little bit more eagle-eyed. So I'm wondering if he is a decider. I don't know. That's purely like woo woo.
It's interesting that those are the things that you're starting to spot. I'm starting to spot, they did that video on the modalities. I'm
Yeah.
starting to spot the modalities on a more like just intuitive gut reaction level.
Mm-hmm.
Like when, like spotting when somebody's a tester just from how they move through the world.
Yeah.
Or spotting when someone is more double masculine. I think actually that's when we were typing Terry Crews.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I landed on audio for him was just like something about how he interacted, screamed audio to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing that too, especially with audio, double masculine, and double feminine. Yeah, those three especially. Visual, less so. It's more like, well, it's none of these three, so I guess it's that one. Like visual, I don't pick up as. Yeah.
We don't have too many good examples of visual, but I'm starting to understand visual as well. But of course, still doing the cross checks.
Yeah,
still
of course.
Sure
Of course.
the tribe and the sensory is all aligned. But
yeah. So yeah, decider observer to me for kids is very tough to see. Like I don't know. I can see letters. I can, like we said, modality, but decider observer.
So my sister is my guess for my sister and my brother-in-law. My sister is TESI. She's
Mm-hmm.
a visual TESI, and my brother-in-law is audio FI OE. I think NE because I see a lot of masculine SI,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not committed to that one. But they're both deciders, and that's actually like one of the points of friction between them. And my niece, I see so much decider off of her. She's got like IP issues coming out
Yeah.
of her ass
Oh,
for
okay.
a 2-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I guess that's a good way to look at it. Even in my own like typing homework, I'm starting to look at like what role does the tribe play, or
for them.
what
Yes,
void are
yes,
you leaving? The whole
yes.
like what void. And so I could, yeah, that's where even with my daughter, with Elisa, I still kind of lean towards observer. IJ is like the freakouts and the problems that she's already having in her life are from wanting so much control.
Mm,
That she's not okay with things being uncontrolled. Like, and
yeah.
part of that is like she seems to also have some anxiety, but it's like, where's that coming from? Because we never like
Some
she's
observer anxiety,
yeah,
you think?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's chaos control. It's like
Yes,
when
control.
things are
Yeah.
just okay, she's fine with just like the regular routine of things. And I know, to a certain extent, they always say like kids love routine and stuff like that, but it's like, I don't know, this seems to be dialed to 11. Like this is because I
Yeah,
do
but it's
watch kids.
like it's who's responsible for that routine,
Yes,
right? So like
yes,
my niece,
that's
I
true.
she definitely my niece is lead consume, so she's
Yes,
got that save yourself and save your gather going on,
yeah.
um, and she does really well with routines, but she is not going to take any of the responsibility
There
for
you
that.
go. That's okay. I
She
just
wants the
learned
environment to
something.
provide that routine for her.
I just learned something in this because that's exactly right. Because with Elisa, she is the one that's setting the routine. It's actually pretty hilarious because she'll like remind you of rules and be like, no, that's not what we did before. Like she has rules. And so
She's
like,
got that
yeah. And
LI.
OI, and I think it's SI, which is why like
SI.
I've been trying to coach my husband on like how to deal with SI because he doesn't have SI, I'm pretty sure.
Right. Yeah.
And so he'll like change up her sensory and she'll like freak out about it. And like I'm
Yeah.
always like, no, you gotta trust me.
Take it carefully. Take
Trust
it
me, because I
slowly.
have SI. Like I get it. Like it's so funny, the two of us probably being the two SI users in the house is like, even like days of the week panties and stuff. I'm like, no, Elisa, it's Wednesday. Like you can't have this one. And then and I'll tell it to her like that because she can't fully read yet, right? So I'll
Mhm.
tell her like, oh no, Elisa, that one's Friday, today's Wednesday. And she's like, oh, okay, yes, give me the Wednesday. You know what I mean? And she doesn't resist. She's like, oh my God, I didn't know. Like, thank you for saving me from this disaster of wearing Friday on a
So
Wednesday.
adorable.
Like she's really thankful to me. So like that's like one of our points of like connection too, is she knows I'm looking out for her SI.
For her SI, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've got an
And it's
ISJ.
yeah, it sounds like you do.
Yeah. Yep.
It's interesting. So
Oops. Go ahead. Sorry. My
so
my
on
mouth went. So.
Elisa, you're seeing SI.
Yep. I think so.
Um, and on Jay, you're seeing NE.
I think I am. And so that's where I was like joking that I think poor Luis might be surrounded by NESI people. I don't know. With
Yeah,
Jay,
time
it's
will tell.
more of a yeah. With Jay, it's more of a okay. I see gather. I see OE of some
Mm-hmm.
sort, and I kind of see NT puzzling.
T blocking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's NT, not ST, because it's conceptual. It's like if I do this, his imagination says something should happen. You know
Excellent.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so he's making connections. It's less whereas like when we talked to Shannon, her son was like down in the like
In the
sensory
sensory
the
block
sensory
banging.
blocks. Yeah. And even when she talked about it, if you guys go back and watch our interview, she looks up when she talks about the NT. She's like, yeah, my son wasn't doing this, he was doing this. And I'm like, yeah, I get exactly what you need. Because Jay, it's like, okay, I did a thing, does the TV do it? Does this work? Like he loves looking at lights and stuff and like trying to figure out how they work and like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Ah, that's fascinating.
yeah. So let's talk tribe versus self a little bit. I hinted on it, but
Was there any more on observer decider?
oh
So you're seeing observer eyes
yeah, I
in
see observer
NESI.
eyes. And yeah, desire, yeah, no, I don't know. I see, I'll say this. I can see the control chaos issues with Elisa. And she's 5. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know about the self and tribe issues with her, it's murkier. So that also leans towards observant.
Yeah, that's
Right?
that's one of the things
It's like a
that
cross check.
with my niece, I see her, I like her MFI, I see so much. But I know that she's gathered, but I can't figure out if it's sensory or intuition.
Right. So I
So
guess
that
that's,
part's a little murkier.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the
So
cross
she's
check of
got
the
the
fact.
double observing going on. Yeah.
Yeah, the double observing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jay, I just don't know at this point. Like, and so that's where I was going to pivot to tribe versus self, because I think he is savior tribe.
Mm.
In that it's really funny because like Elisa, we used to be able, like, we could do things like, and I'm not saying this is like a good thing, but we could like leave her in her room
Mm-hmm.
and generally she can entertain herself. Like we wouldn't have to do that much. I mean, but Jay, like, if
Yeah.
you walk out of the room, he's coming with you. He's not, he needs to
Doesn't want to,
be with
yeah.
somebody. He doesn't like to
Do
be
you
on
think
his
that's
own.
decider or do you think that's play?
It could be play. It could be play. But what I'm saying is save your tribe, I guess. That's
Oh,
what I'm
sorry.
saying.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah. That's the
Yeah.
interesting thing that I see with my nephew. He pays attention to people.
Mm-hmm.
He is like
Pinging off of what they're
hawk-eyed
doing.
on people.
Yeah.
Knows, like if somebody enters the room, leaves, like he's 4 months old, not even like
Right.
just 4 months old.
Yeah.
You know? And he follows people and tracks people so
Yeah.
much, ridiculous. And I think that what that tells me is save your tribe.
Yeah. Or that could be decidery too.
I wonder if it's decidery, but with my niece, like she didn't care. She'll entertain herself, and I think
That's
that's
true.
save your DI,
Yeah.
right? But he is constantly like
Yes. Yes. So it could
he'll
be
entertain himself for a little bit, but he'll be really happy if there's somebody smiling at him.
right. Yeah. 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 So again, that's where with Jay, that's why I'm thinking not only play savior, but possibly lead play, the gathering
Yeah.
and the tribe,
Yeah.
so that's where I'm like, uh-oh. There's like a little me running around. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
Just a
that'd be
little.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. So I've briefly talked about the axes, that I think that I think there's a bunch of NESI in my house. What about SENI for yours?
Well, with my nephew, I can't tell at all yet. It's way too soon.
Yeah.
He can't even sit yet.
Yeah.
With my niece, my brother-in-law, he's a double observer. And I went back and forth about whether he's SE or NE for a while because I was seeing some demon NI, a lot of like don't control me
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
But it was only recently, like actually on this trip that, and from knowing you and seeing how the masculine SI shows in your life, I'm like, whoa, Nelly, does he have masculine SI? So I've landed on feminine NE as a savior.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And with my niece, I think a part of me is expecting to see that because she's got the masculine FIIP like he does.
Mm-hmm.
And physically she's got the hardware that she looks like him and my nephew looks like my sister.
Yeah. That's it again. I don't know.
Yeah, that flip. Yeah.
Like
I
genetics.
actually think she might be SE. I'm not sure. It's harder to tell.
It is hard to tell. Because even with Jay, it's like he definitely gathers sensory things, but usually towards a puzzly end. That's the way it feels, like we've got these little trains like Thomas the Tank Engine,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got Thomas and Percy and they move, right? And like, so he gathers up Thomas and Percy. He loves to like go find them.
Yeah.
But he likes to like try to turn them on so that they'll go and then like put them together and see where they're going to go and things like that. So he gathers towards the end of doing a puzzle, his own thing. So yeah.
Well,
and then
got play blast like as his saviors.
he could. Good Lord.
Good luck, Luis.
Yeah, I know, right? Because he's sleep consumed, so he'll just get killed. Yeah. It'll be fun. It'll be fun once Jay's a little bit older and I can start, getting him more into the STEM stuff. Because I already know, like,
that he'll love it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can already tell. It's like we're gonna be doing puzzles and things like, yeah, yep, yeah. What about the letters on your? Because that was the thing that Shannon said she saw right away was ST. That SETE
on Cody.
Yeah,
or
TESE. I keep saying that backwards, but yeah.
I don't know. I'm not seeing anything pop out. The masculine FI is a thing. Masculine FI and audio is a thing I see just oodles of. on my
Right.
niece. That's it.
Right.
What about you?
Yeah, well, I've talked
Yeah.
about Jay like ad nauseum. So with Elisa, definitely that at S. And so is it T or is it F with her? I kind of lean towards F, to be honest with you. Like she seems to be feeling like she seems to be a pretty good feeler, like aware of her feelings, aware of also her likes and not likes, and like what she will do and what she won't do. That's
So
one
you're thinking
thing.
SIFI.
I might be, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which would be interesting. 'Cause those are my demons. But
Yeah.
you know, it's so we were at a birthday party last week, and it's very interesting to kind of watch her in a sort of like a tribe
Hmm.
setting, which I don't get a lot of exposure to because, I work and she goes to daycare or whatever. But like, so the birthday party was essentially her preschool class, like, so they all know each other and everything. And it's very interesting to watch that dynamic of like, all the kids would go to like the pizza came, for example, right? And so all the kids were like, pizza, pizza, pizza. And they all go to the pizza. But Elisa was like well, hold on. Yeah. So she would get her pizza and then they all sat down and she's eating her pizza. And then like the face painter showed up. And so all the kids, like in a herd movement is what I've been saying, went to the face painter. But my daughter didn't. Like she was like, I'm going to eat my pizza. Like I have pizza. I'm going to finish this. And she did. And then the herd movement came back to eat, but she went to the face painter. So she ended up alone in the face painter line, and she's fine with that, which me is like, say if you're I'm like, why are you okay being alone? Like all of your friends are over here. And she's just like, yeah, no, I want to do this right now. Like it doesn't matter to her. So it's this like, I don't know. I call that FI because she's like, I know what I like. I know what I don't like. And I don't really
That
need.
also sounds like masculine FI.
It does kind of.
Because I like me as a kid, I would have been terrified to be the one left behind. Like I got the savior FI, but it's feminine. Like I still need my tribe,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I'll
Sounds
say
like
this.
masculine FI tends to be just chill.
Yes. I'll say this. It sounds like masculine DI. Like whether or not that's a
Yes.
T or an F, I'm not sure. She
Right.
feels more like a feeler. Like again, I'm going woo woo. Okay, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, what else do we have to go off of?
Exactly. This is pure woo. But like she's also just really good at feelings, if you will. Like
Yeah.
she's okay feeling certain ways.
Good at feeling.
Yeah, she's good. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't know. Like for me, it's a big old like do question mark. But she is like, and that's one thing I really love about their relationship. My son and my daughter is she's very considerate of him. She's very considerate of him. Like she's like that, and that's the other interesting thing. She'll say like Jay wants this or Jay wants that, and you hear about older siblings kind of speaking for their younger siblings, but no, like she's actually very cognizant of like he doesn't like that. I know he doesn't like that. And I can tell you because we can talk.
Might have feminine feeling, feminine FE and masculine TI.
Maybe that might be an idea too. I have considered FE for her just somewhere,
Yeah, you had mentioned that a bit.
Yeah, yeah. That
would
would
be
be interesting.
That aware of what
he
likes.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a 5-year-old.
Yes.
Even as an older sister, that's still,
Yeah, and I mean, and it's very much of like, and this is again like I love to watch the two of them because it's not manipulative, if you will. You know what I mean? It's a legit like I'm trying to help him out because I can tell that he doesn't like this, and so I'm trying to help him. It's not like I'm pretending like he wants this just to F around or just to get what I actually want, that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be masculine TI. That would be really interesting. That could be.
Would be because none of you guys have TI.
No.
It's not like in your you think some folks on Luisa's side might have.
Yeah, they might. Yeah, who knows? But like
you were saying, your brother.
My brother might have been. Yeah. It might have been FE. If anybody in my family of origin has FE, you know what I mean? It would have been him. Yeah. He definitely used it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I recently realized, so my brother, my oldest brother, my guess is he's double masculine and ETI. Sleep last. And in my family, we're all info dominant. Yeah. Not a single person is energy dominant in my family. And a lot of observer decider doesn't matter. When we get into information, we like get into information. It's all about like, well, what is right? And we get into these really loud arguments.
Yeah, we do too.
And my brother is always just really good at like I think it's what I'm trying to get at is I recently realized that it's his demon masculine FE, and
Mm.
that in an argument, he manages to just like with your emotions
Yeah.
out, and he doesn't even realize it because
Yeah.
he's one of those people who's just doubling down on his saviors. Like,
Right.
he's not taking care of his demons at all.
Right.
And that FE is like, whoa.
That's interesting. This is gonna give me a lot to like process later. The idea that like, if Elisa is SI with masculine TI, feminine FE in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of reminds me of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Like
Yeah.
FE was something he was using. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't
of
it wasn't
course.
like a demon like he couldn't handle. It was like, guys, don't you see the FE?
I think that's why NTPs,
Yeah.
like INTPs and ENTPs, they can be,
Yeah.
when they have that NT thing that they've puzzled out and they take it to the tribe, it's
Mhm.
very
It's
powerful.
very powerful. Yeah,
Yeah,
they know how to
because
do
it's
that.
this
Yeah.
SF, this really powerful, yeah,
Yeah,
like Neil
could
deGrasse
be. It
Tyson.
could be. That would be interesting to watch. Because yeah, she definitely has good access of the feelings. Like it's if it is a demon, it's not like the
They
for it's not for her. Chaos is the big one. Like I can't.
That's one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about. So, the
Yeah,
kids in our lives, the oldest one is 5. So
I know.
they're still very much growing and developing, but kind
Yeah,
of maybe looking back at our own lives,
I know where you're going.
when
So, go.
other parts developed.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I wanted to go there too. I was
Okay,
thinking
so
about when do
what
we
do you
want to
think?
pivot to that too. Yeah, so for me personally, and like all the way back, as far back as I can remember, I was NT nerd curious. Like
Hmm.
I was banging blocks together in an NT way as far back as I can remember. I mean, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was 5 years old. Like I've wanted to be an astronaut from the beginning, and it's driven by a curiosity, this like, so that's that any of like I was telling you in the Facebook group, like any wants to keep possibilities open. Like we
Open.
don't
Yeah.
want to, I don't want an NI conclusion. I want as many connections as I can find. And that was me as a young kid, and I would like puzzle things together that shouldn't that society doesn't like us to puzzle together. We'll say it that way, because like religion, because I grew up in a Black Protestant church, but I went to a Catholic school, and I would like NT puzzle these differences, like I would be like, wait a minute. Like I remember it's so funny because like I went to a Catholic elementary school, like first through third grade. I remember being in like first grade going, okay, so the difference between the Catholics and the Protestants is that the Catholics add this extra bit to the Lord's Prayer. Or no, I'm sorry, the Protestants did. And so like that was like my first like, wait a minute, these are
Yeah.
different. These are different. And there I go. Like I'm just like banging, like, why are they different? What's going on? Like
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
remember
yeah.
that puzzling so early on. So I think my NT was something I could tell. Like, and I was curious about stuff super
Yeah, yeah,
early.
yeah.
Yeah. And then, becoming more and more aware of the NF. So I think, yeah, like kind of sorta in order. I don't know. Like we've gone back and forth on this one too. Like,
Yeah, that kind of developed in that. So, I mean, there's a bunch of parts of our SAC, right?
yes.
So one of it is the animals in terms of
Yeah.
what, so
Letters.
for you, it would be OED or,
Uh-huh.
first, and
Yeah.
then OEDI. So those developments, but
Yeah.
then also the letters that are associated with it.
Yeah.
Because I know, like for myself, there was a point in my life where, and I don't know, maybe this has to do with having masculine extroverted world, but there was a point in my life where I learned to be okay spending time by myself. Like
That's
that was
interesting.
something I had to learn to do, even
Yeah.
though I'm, consume sleep,
Yeah.
constantly NIFI figuring out why I feel what I feel,
Yeah.
value what I value. But up until probably post college, like my first couple of years after college, I was very, very uncomfortable spending time by myself
That's
without
interesting.
any kind of SE stimulation.
Yeah, interesting. I
Yeah.
was always pretty good being on my own, but I've often said that especially NT play can be very cerebral, and you don't necessarily need another person to be curious
Yeah.
about stuff. And so like while I could be alone, but I was alone in Harry Potter land in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like
Well,
it
any is, that
yeah,
imagination.
imagination.
Delicious
And so
imagination.
I used to write these like really long, I mean, I had binders that were like this thick of stories and things and stuff. And so like I would spend a lot of time alone just like writing these imaginary worlds. And one of my memories of like that I really cherish of my mom is going on walks with her as a kid, and I would tell her these stories. Like I didn't like people to read them. Like I was real funny
Yeah.
about don't read my story, but I will like tell it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
It was really cool. Like she would listen and tell me like, oh yeah, that part was really cool. Like she was always really positive with me with that. And so I did spend a lot of time kind of in my own little room kind of doing my thing. And so yeah, like I don't know, it's to me it feels more like I became more and more, I don't know, it's so hard because the NT I could definitely see early on, that curiosity and like doing that. NF I could see. So I kind of go down my animal stack, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So was there like, do you think there was a point where you became more NF?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I it's hard because I feel like my NT and my NF in my mind are very close to each other. Like I feel like
Yeah, they're both your saviors.
yeah, exactly. And like I feel like it's like this where I've always had a really strong, like I just told you, like I was NT figuring out the NF spirituality around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was things like that. Like and so yeah, even into high school, early childhood, like I just was very comfortable with NFB things, if you will, especially if you go NF hippie. Like I've always been just like full on NF hippie, like
It's
totally.
interesting. I was always figuring out the NF. So, like for me, growing
Internally.
up, my Judaism was really important for
Yeah.
me. But I was always comparing it to bringing it back to the sensory in terms of like, I've always been really in love with science as well. But like, how can science and religion coexist in
Yeah.
terms of like, how can that
Yeah.
NF coexist with that sensory?
With your
And
sensory. Yeah. With your, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
for a long time in my life, excuse me, they weren't in conflict. Like I found a way for them to coexist.
Hmm.
Actually, when I found a way when they couldn't coexist, that I ended up landing on one, so to speak.
Right.
Makes sense.
Well, and I think again, like it's so funny. It's hilarious to me to look back of the fact that I never ever tested as a any,
Hmm.
because like when I was in high school, I took the test through my high school, and
Mm.
they typed me as an INTJ, and I think 16 personalities wanted always to call me an INTJ until recently, basically until last year, where I started popping up as an ESTJ, and I think um wow, I've got two thoughts coexisting in my brain right now. So first, let's talk the ESTJ bit. I think the reason why the ESTJ started coming up, especially in the last couple of years, is I now have two kids. I've been through a lot of like difficult things. I'm a leader at work. All of a sudden, like that ST blast had to turn on big time for
Yeah.
me in the last couple of years. And so when I'm answering that test, I'm like, yeah, I can pay attention to the sensory because I've had to like learn it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yes, because they ask the questions of like, do you care about sensory things? Yes, I do. I do.
Right.
And it was
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
was like so much of like, now I can't outsource that stuff. Like I have to take the responsibility for the SI so much more in my life. And so
Yeah.
this
Yeah. Of course.
ESTJ starts popping up a lot. And I've got that double masculine ST blast. And I've really had to get into it over the last 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
especially since getting into management. It's like, I mean, ESTJ is like the stereotypical manager. And like, so I've
Yeah.
really had to do that. Um, but like my NE, it's always been there. Cause I remember, in college, or not even in
Well,
college, but like,
NE is such a like
yeah.
invisible, ephemeral function. Like of all the functions, it's the
Mhm.
one that's like the least
The
tactile,
least
the least
tactile.
sensory.
Exactly. And what I was thinking is like, I've always been okay with like, and people have wondered this about me, like, why is she so okay with all these different religions and all this different stuff? And I
Yeah.
guess that's my NE popping out, like that I had no idea about that. Yeah, like I remember in like high school and because so in high school I went to a Catholic elementary school, public middle school, and then back to Catholic school for high school. And so we actually had a comparative religions class, and that was like my
Oh,
favorite class of all time ever.
yeah.
And that's essentially how I found Buddhism. I was a Unitarian for a long time. I think technically you could still call me a Unitarian. In
I
that,
don't
like
know what that means.
so Unitarians, okay, side note, a Unitarian, so Unitarian, it's a Unitarian Universalist church. It actually is a religion. It was kind of founded was founded by Christians who have a much looser concept of God. And so it's very like, it's like pantheism kind of.
Okay,
Like it's
cool.
very open to pretty much anything.
Whatever works for you kind of thing.
Yeah. And so like some people don't like it because it's like so not defined that it's
Okay,
like, what
yeah.
are we doing? And but then some people really love it because it gives them a lot of freedom. And
Hmm.
so yeah. Yeah. But yeah, actually, so I did a paper on them actually in high school. And
Okay.
originally there was the Unitarians and then there was the Universalists. The Universalists were the really like, we just believe in whatever you want. Just come to our church. The Unitarians were kind of like, everything is one. Everything is like, all spirituality can be sort of taken together. And then they were like,
Encapsulated.
we aren't that different. So we're just going to combine. So they're now the Unitarian Universalist Church and they're around. They're pretty
Interesting.
cool.
Okay, cool.
If you go there, it's very white, white Protestant based. And I say that as like, there's like the Black Protestant tradition, which is very we emote a lot and there's a lot of, whereas this is more, it reminds me of, oh God, what's the,
Like waspy.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes they would joke that the when I was with the Unitarians, they would say the United Church of Christ is Unitarians for Christ because they're very similar. Like they're very like, yeah. Anyway, whatever. Side tangent into Unitarian.
Yeah.
I really love them. And there's a church actually down the street. I just not having come up in that Black church, I sometimes don't have the experience that I kind of miss from church. Wow, this became about religion all of a sudden.
Yeah.
We should do a podcast.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, two Tubble
have to be
observers.
careful, but yeah,
I know
that
two
might
Tubble
be
observers talking religion is kind of scary. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm obviously very fluid with it.
No, and I was for most of
Yeah.
my life as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I grew up very much in. You know what? Let's pause it. We'll talk about religion in another episode.
yeah, we'll talk about that.
But you said so a while back. You told me how there was two competing thoughts in your head. One of them you went down an ESTJ route. Did you get the other? Did you?
Yeah. The second one was me being so fluid with religion, even
okay, cool.
Age. Yeah. Those were the two pops that. Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of looking back at my life and in terms of how I see my stack developing in me, I actually think that there was an element of like regression, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because my family, when my family immigrated here, I was 7 years old. And for the first year that we lived here, my mom was by herself and she was 38 at the time, so really young with 4 kids.
Yeah.
And I was the youngest of which, and she didn't speak the language. This was like pre-Skype where you had to like go get a phone card if you wanted to make an international call, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so we all kind of had to step up a lot. And I took on a lot of responsibilities as a kid, as did my siblings. And then that propelled me into like, there was a lot of blast play in my childhood and college years.
Yeah.
Like my college, when I was in college, I was, between classes, 5 jobs, 3 different clubs that I was like president of or whatever it was that I was doing. My schedule was packed, like nonstop, back to back. I was very often in blast play and I didn't really have time for just like consume sleep moping. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like now that there is no necessity for it, it's like I've slowed down and now I'm in my consume sleeps and now I feel the struggle of getting myself into blast play.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And that's where for me, my type, while I think it's correct, I always, the sleep last is always a little bit hard for me to fully grasp, but it's kind of similar to what you're saying. Like when I had less sort of external, so before recently, before the last 5 years, right, which have been just balls to the walls crazy, I feel like I got into sleep energy a lot, and maybe it was just I had the time to work my way through my full filter to get to that,
to get to it. Yeah.
Whereas with you, it's like the external world forced you to
be there, to be present, to be in my blast play. Yeah.
So it's almost like the opposite. whereas like when before the life pressure started with me, I was able to kind of go through play, consume, blast, and get to sleep. Because I feel like I did a ton of sleep processing in my like
Yeah.
early, like in my late 20s. You know, before I had kids, I was super into like the Buddhist community here. And so I was doing a lot of meditating, a lot of like, what do I value? Who am I kind of stuff. I was doing
Yeah.
a lot of that inquiry. And then once life kind of ramped up, it was like, nope, you need to blast, you need to
That's
play.
fascinating.
And so that's when my sleep, I feel like, kind of dropped because,
Dropped off. Yeah.
well, and it makes sense because it's a filter, right? It's like, that's my default. Like, okay, well, I'm running out of time.
Yeah. Then
Drop the
it's
sleep.
tough. No, but I mean, it's fascinating in the sense that like, so yes, our animals are filters, right? So we have to go through the ones before we
Yeah.
get to the lower ones, so to speak. But the other side that's fascinating is that like, because my default is being in my internal world,
Yeah.
I need the external world
To demand your
presence
demons.
of me,
Yes.
whereas your default is more external world. So you need relaxation,
To
like you need
allow.
the external world to remove pressure off you to allow
Correct.
yourself to go into that internal world.
Correct.
That's that's really
Yeah.
fascinating.
So we just confirmed that you're more introverted and I'm more extroverted. Like, who knew?
Which, like
Yeah. I
that's
know.
still something that I think
Yeah.
Dave and Shannon's definitions of extroverted and introverted are still very different from
Correct.
how I conceptualize it. And I think I'm realizing that a lot of it has to do with the fact that they are energy dominant. And so
Yes.
they I think view an extrovertism and
Mhm.
introvertism very differently
Through
from,
the energy. Yeah. Mhm. That's true. Yeah, that's
because
true.
I didn't never think about like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have the energy to do this. I'm like, oh, there's information I want. I'll find the energy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, this was interesting.
This was, we went quite a few different
You
directions. It
know,
was great.
whatever. But I think we touched on everything. I guess the only other thing I wanted to touch on, kind of bringing it back to kids a little bit, is it's
Mhm.
very interesting if you ever can get an opportunity to watch a bunch of kids in an environment together, because
Yeah.
you can see
Spectrum.
the spectrum. Yes.
Yes.
You can see the extrovert introvert spectrum,
Fascinating.
and even like, because I was reading the Kiersey book, Please Understand Me, which is like one of these like classic typology books.
Yeah.
I was reading that book, and then I was at my daughter's dance class, right? And so I'm reading this book and everything, and in the Kiersey temperaments there's the NF, NT, SP, SJ temperaments,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which are different than the OPS ones, but there's still like there's some overlap there,
Yeah,
for
there is.
sure. And like you could identify it, like you could see in this class, in this dance class, it's like, okay, that boy is very NT,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
mhm, and this girl is very SP, that kind of thing. So you can when you see them in a group, you can
It's
see like,
different. Yeah.
yeah,
The spectrum is actually one of the things that, so, because we have FI, right? So I have
yeah,
FI. So my default when it comes to understanding people's emotions is understanding it in a microscopic view.
right, right,
Whereas, like stepping back and understanding macro in terms of relative to each other in that spectrum,
yeah,
that's not my default. And that's one of the things that OPS has brought to me that I
yeah,
really, really appreciate, and understanding that, like, sure, you might be experiencing this, but relative to this person over there, you're actually like more extroverted than you think you are, or whatever it
mhm.
is.
Yeah, and I think seeing them in the group, it also helps to like, you can kind of see the value of all the types, right? Especially if you think about the human needs. And I think like in that, back to that email that I sent Dave and Shan way back when, that's kind of what they came back with like, yeah, in a group, you can see all four human needs start to like populate themselves, and you can kind of understand that dynamic of like, okay, these are the gatherers, these are the organizers, these
Yeah.
are the tribe guys, and these are the self, significance people, right? And like, you
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
man, it
And
was so
who gravitates towards who?
yeah, who
What kind
gravitates
of
towards
friendships
who.
form? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's really fascinating to sit and watch that. Even in a dance class, which was like an hour long, you could kind of
Yeah.
see those
Things pop
tendencies.
up. Mm.
Yeah, so that's really cool. And at that birthday party, of course, and things like that. Like,
Yeah.
again, you can't turn it off. You can't turn it
You
off.
can't. You can't. I remember when I was teaching English in Taiwan, I had this one class that, like, when they came in, I think they were about 6, 7 years old when I first started teaching them. It was a class of about 10 kids, and they were loud and obnoxious and all over the walls. And
Yeah,
there was one kid in particular that just could not sit still at
yeah,
all. really, really hard to manage him for 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
And there was right around the time I was, on a huge TED Talk kick. And there's one of my favorite TED Talks is from Ken Robinson. And he was talking about how, sometimes just the way that we learn is different. And he had this example about how somebody ended up, being a dancer, and she just needed to move her body in order
Mhm.
to concentrate.
Right.
And I noticed with this kid that he just needed to sing. And if I let him hum something, he was playing, like he played the violin and all that. If I let him hum something while taking a test, he would sit for that test no problem.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
told him to be quiet, then he would not be able to sit still.
Right.
It was fascinating to see that. And like now looking back, I see that he probably very likely had an audio modality,
Yeah.
and he just needed that, or like, and it didn't interrupt any of the other students. They didn't mind. So I just let him like hum to himself, and
Yeah.
he just sat, and he could sit, 7-year-old sit an hour through a test
Yeah.
because there
Yeah.
was
Yeah, and so like, to bring a little bit of like FE into this, like that, and there is the value, right? Like there's the value of sort of being able to see it in the kids in your life, is
yeah,
you can enable them, and instead of,
yeah,
and so I know that's what Dave and Shannon have done with their son, because he is Tony Robbins. He's like all
yeah, right. He's
brain.
all in on that. Yeah.
And schools really aren't made for Tony Robbins types,
No.
and so like they, knowing that about him, they're able to sort of set up his environment to give him that release that he needs, because his school is not
Yeah.
necessarily going to do that, and they are able to kind of talk to his teachers and coordinate all that stuff. And that's kind of already what I'm seeing with my daughter, like as it's becoming more and more clear. It's like, okay, I can now, not, I'm not saying like use that to my advantage, well, use it to help her, I'll say.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
you better understand her, and you better understand how to create an environment in which she can, like, even if, because the animals are filters.
Yeah.
If we create a space where the people in our lives can hit their saviors and they're able to get to their demons,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
they, like, if she can do the saviors at home, then she can do her demons at school if
School if
that's
they
what
have
school
to.
demands of her.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yep. I mean, I use the same trick as a manager at work. Like I kind
Yeah,
of know my team's
of
types,
course.
and I'm like, okay, I know where I can push on them and it will stress them out. And you know that ahead of time. Like,
Yeah, of
okay, this
course.
one's going to be hard for you, but I'm cognizant of it. And so like, I'm able to kind of give space for that movement, yeah. So, okay. Anything else on this one? Cause
No, this has been a lot of fun to record, and a little all over the place, but it was good.
it's my episode that I hosted. What do you expect?
Two
Yeah.
EPs. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not gonna always stay on topic.
yeah, 2 EPs. And I was just like, it's just play energy this one. I don't have like too much. So yeah. Yeah. That's why I mean, I know it's totally my savior, but it gives me that dopamine hit to not have a plan and then
See
see
what
how things
happens.
go. Yeah. Yeah. I know it stresses out the OIs. It stresses them out, but I love not having a plan.
See, I like having
Something of a plan.
I like having guidelines, like
Yeah.
a rough outline, as
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if I get stuck, I
Yeah.
can go to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like as like a fail safe, but if I don't get stuck, then I'm just like
Then you're
keep
fine.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. So I'll close this one out. So you want to share your thoughts? What do you think about development of your type through your life as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult? We didn't talk about older people. That would be another interesting one, because my dad, yeah, maybe that's another
Yeah,
topic.
that would be
Because I
because
can
yeah.
like I feel like, yes, there's the alpha, but there's also just like the old sages.
There,
You live long enough, you're gonna get to alpha.
Well, yes and no. I
Well, that's true.
actually think there's the opposite of that, where like you
You can get
spend so
stuck.
much of your life doubling down on your
Yeah.
saviors. I so I'm just going to share this because I've actually been itching to share this for a while.
Yeah.
So my mom and my brother, like I love them both dearly.
Hmm.
And my mom, my guess is her type is FENI,
Hmm.
right? EJ, and
Hmm.
my brother NETI. And I'm just realizing like that is, and my brother is 40 years old, 41. It was his birthday last week. And he lives at my mom's house,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
I love him. He barely pays rent. He can't even cover her mortgage, right?
Yeah.
And my mom's unemployed. Like, dude, get your shit together. But it's like your stereotypical EJ killing herself for the tribe. She needs the
Yeah.
tribe to kill herself for.
Yeah.
And my brother being lead consume, just like taking everything that he could take, right?
Yeah.
They are feeding off each other and feeding each other's saviors, like creating a space
Yeah.
where they can just keep doing their saviors.
Yeah.
is your stereotypical like Jewish mom and 30-year-old living at home. Like there is a reason that stereotype exists.
Oh no. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they've been just like doing their saviors, and they're still doing their saviors. And like my
Yeah.
dad was doing his saviors all the way until when he died. Like,
Gosh, yeah,
were
we
they
may, yeah.
great husbands?
Yeah, I'll have to, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. Cause
So you
yeah.
know what? Let me jot that
Yeah,
idea down.
jot that one down. Cause I feel like my dad is alpha AF. Like
Oh,
he
I bet.
got them all,
I
except
bet.
for that he's definitely keyed towards his savior. You know, there's definitely a
Well,
key,
yeah, of
like a
course.
bias, right? Like I can
End of the
definitely see
day,
that. But I mean, yeah.
you can.
Anyways,
Oh, you
Dad,
can.
if you ever listen to this, it's unbelievable. Like what he's been through, and to be as like healthy and balanced as he is incredible. And so I think that's part of the reason why he's so like he had to be alpha. Like he's just been through a ringer, and yet and has come out the other end of that thing.
Fascinating. We definitely should talk
Yep.
about this.
Yep. Okay. Old people's next.
Yeah, because
Sorry, Dad.
in my family, it's like
Just
I
keep
think my
doubling
sister
down.
and I are the only ones who are dealing with our demons.
Mm,
And everyone else in my family is just doubling down on their saviors.
huh.
And my
Anyway.
sister, for lead TE, my sister has definitely done FI work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So
and
anyway, so if you have any thoughts, if
okay,
you're a listener, you can
yeah, we'd love to hear them.
yeah, we'd love to hear them. We've talked about a whole bunch, so I mean, there's
Yeah, we
lots that you
did.
can key off of. You can do so in the comments of the YouTube video for this podcast. There'll be a link in the podcast show notes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, just comment in the comment below.
Yeah, we want to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, yeah. Also, let us know if you have any topics of interest, anything you'd love to hear us talk about, anybody you'd love to hear us type. We're definitely open to suggestions.
Yeah.
We will be posting our upcoming episode topics and people who are typing in the OPS study group. So if you're familiar with that Facebook group, let us know. That's kind of what we're using right now as we transition to see if we want to do our own group or something like that. So for now, OPS study group.
Yeah, we'll figure it
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Other than that, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and the podcast. That helps our numbers. If you're actually a subscriber, that really helps.
Leave a review if you're listening to this through the podcast. I
Yes,
don't think we have any reviews.
Yeah, and actually, that's a really good point for Savia, because reviews is what bumps things up in iTunes. So yes, leave a review. Hopefully a positive one.
Also, like, I actually don't know, like every now and then someone on the group will mention that they listened to an episode, but like,
Yeah, we never know. Yeah.
if you do have like, hey guys, I think you're doing this well, but I think you could do this better, we want to hear that too. We want to make this a good podcast for you to
Exactly.
listen to.
Exactly. Yep. Pop a review on iTunes. That helps bump it up. Other than that, this is thanks for listening to Objectively Typed with Evelyn.
And for Savia.
And until next time, bye.
Bye.
And scene.